Well, in obedience to the command of Jesus Christ and that message from the two angels who appeared, the disciples return to Jerusalem and they gather together along with, we're told, some women and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and his brothers. And there they are in Jerusalem. They're praying and they're waiting for the coming of the Holy Spirit. Now, I want to notice two things, but just one thing today. Who was there in Jerusalem, that early church gathering, and what they were doing? We'll think about what they were doing on another occasion, but perhaps two sessions on who was there. First of all, the disciples minus Judas, plus the women who've been mentioned in the Bible who were supporting Jesus and his disciples, Mary, his mother, and Jesus' brothers. I want to notice this. They were northerners. They were from up north, and they're down in Jerusalem. They are Galileans. They are substantially weak in this world's eyes, without strength. They are also uneducated, simple people. And yet, soon, empowered by God the Holy Spirit, they will turn the world upside down. And you're listening to me 2,000 years later because of what God did through those weak, uneducated Galileans, men and women gathered together 2,000 years ago in simple obedience to the command of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, who came and lived and died and rose again that we might be forgiven and reconciled to God. So they were weak and they were uneducated. Let me just draw this out. In the world today, we may be small in number, and maybe you're listening, you belong to a very small church fellowship. Never despair. Surrounded by power and might and education, never despair. You may be a large church congregation. Never rely on your numbers. That is a terrible, misleading thing to do. From the weakest to the strongest, from the smallest to the greatest, we rely on Jesus Christ and his power. Let me conclude by saying this morning. The most uneducated person in the world, the simplest person in the world, who is a believer, is wiser than the greatest intellect who is not a believer. You may be a Professor Hawking. We could mention many names, but if you're not a believer, the simplest person with the gospel is wiser than you. Get true wisdom, get Jesus Christ. Also, the weakest person in this world who has Jesus Christ has more power than the greatest power brokers on planet Earth who do not have Jesus Christ. So you may be a Vladimir Putin or whatever name you want to give. The simplest believer has more power than you. So get Jesus Christ, get power, most of all get forgiveness of sins and peace with God through the gospel. That is the power, the dynamite of God to salvation. So that's our first thing, a little bit long this morning. We're approaching 4 minutes now. Who was in that gathering in Jerusalem?